All right, everybody, we're back. We made it to a quinceañera today. Yeah. Yes.
No, we didn't.
We did. We totally did. Our little podcast is now a full-grown woman. And it is its quince today, which is episode 15 for those of you in the English-speaking world. But I'm getting cultured like a motherfucker on this thing. So quince it is today, all right? So introductions, Ed, well, before we get into introductions, we're doing another first today. We're doing another first. It looks a little weird. It looks a little different because it's just been dudes in here. But let's introduce our first female guest. Holy cow. Allie Fleming, everybody. Hey.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. We really could use a little bit of a female touch on this thing if you watched any of the episodes in the past. So honored to have you. Thank you very much for coming out. So introductions. Over here in the left center, we have Joey the Moron.
Joey. Oh, and then me. Yeah. Jay Klein.
Mike Stu, Addict Meth GHB.
And I'm Allie Fleming. I'm glad to be here.
All right.
Honored
So, all right, we have a little tradition we kick this off with every week. So I'll let the guy off to my left do that.
Like we do with every episode, let us get centered, let us get present, let us get focused. Let us bow our heads, close our eyes. Think about the addict that's still out there suffering and struggling currently right now. The friends, the family members that are currently struggling with them. Maybe the addict that's in recovery right now that's going through something. And the ones that unfortunately could not be here with us today. Let us think about them. A moment of silence, please. Thank you.
All right. Well, perspective is what we're trying to bring here, new perspective. And we brought it in a big way. As I said, first female guest, and I'm sure your journey was a little bit different than these two guys, both in addiction and recovery. I'm just going to assume that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So
Probably some similarities too.
yeah, I would be willing to bet. Yeah. But I just want to open the floor to you. You know, tell us, what you struggled with in your addiction. First and foremost, what was it?
Sure. Yeah. So I think it's so interesting because obviously as the moron, you don't have the same experience as us three, but I think that what we learn is that regardless of a lot of things, we all have similar stories.
Yeah.
My kind of deal was this trifecta of alcohol, benzodiazepines, and cocaine. And it was like a cycle. So I would wake up in the morning and I say I would pop pilly. So I would, have my little benzo to get through the day. And then depending on what, like where I was in my alcoholism, I would typically start drinking around 2 or 3, despite having a job, an office job, and then kind of go off to the races and do my drinking thing. And I would always get a bag of cocaine and I would always stay up later than I intended to. And then I would start the show over again, I like to say for the last few years of my drinking, I was using, I think I drank for the last 3 or 4 years consecutively, on a daily basis. At that time, I didn't really understand what withdrawal is, which is honestly a theme of my story. But I always say for 1,000 days and 1,000 nights, I was drinking and using and I didn't want to. And I knew the consequences and I knew that I had some important commitment because I did have a job, a 9-to-5 job in the morning, and every day I would blow it. And so the thing that's so cunning or baffling about this disease for me was that I knew what happened if you looked at a statistics problem. And it was if Allie puts alcohol in her body, she knows she's not going to be able to stop, then why would I gamble? Why would I try to gamble and essentially put money on that tonight's going to be different? And it never was, and I tried for a really long time. But just to back it up, My name's Allie. I'm from Austin, Texas. And I'm a person in long-term recovery.
How long?
I've been sober consistently for 4.5 years now.
Oh, congratulations.
Which is crazy.
Let's go.
It's crazy. And when I say that, when I think about my life, I'm 34 years old. So like really, it's not that long of a time. I hope I live a long life. And so hopefully this is just the beginning. But when you're like me and I would essentially like swear off and then drink or use an hour later, 4.5 years of consecutive sobriety is crazy. And when I tell people this, like I always like to say, like, I haven't even abused a Benadryl, which like normies or like morons are like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
But I'm that type, you know, like I remember, I was like, dude,
It is what it is now. I've accepted it. I've embraced it. But
morons.
Yeah.
We're the morons in a way. But
Oh, yeah.
I remember when I was it was like I had already been using like drugs, but I remember my friend's mom took us to Colorado. We like did a road trip. We were like 14 or 15, so like pretty young. And she rented this minivan and we were all like riding in the back, driving to Colorado overnight to like go to some film festival. It was like whatever. But I remember like bringing this bottle of NyQuil and like sitting in the back seat and just like slurping it like it was one of these things, you know? And like, it never occurred to me that that was like an abnormal an abnormal like relationship with this bottle of NyQuil. And I remember she turns around and again, we're like driving through the night. So it's like 3 a.m. and she turns around, she puts her hand on the seat and she goes, "Stop fucking slurping that thing," you know? And is
this pre-addiction or is this
was like right at the beginning,
okay.
you know? So it was just like, I had no idea what I was up against, but I was wired that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm from Austin. I'll tell you that, like a lot of us, I started drinking like probably like 14 or 15. I already knew that like, maybe I had a little bit of a different response to alcohol because, first of all, like I remember the first time, like my friends had like 2 shots and they were like, hee, we're done. That's really fun. Like I'm a little drunk and I had 5 back to back, ended up in a bathtub getting sick, you know, and that was like my first experience with alcohol. And then I'm like, the next day I'm like, let's do it again, you know, let's freaking go. And I just continued to have experiences like that. But I'll tell you that the thing that I actually think is the most disturbing is like how, like, if I knew it was like a Friday or Saturday night, keep in mind, this is like when I'm like a freshman in high school. So like, not like, I don't think my alcoholism was like full blown. I still think I was like wired different, but you know, I was drinking on Fridays and Saturdays at that point, which is like kind of normal. And like, it was just like, once I knew like drinking was a possibility, that's all I thought about. You know, there wasn't like, it wasn't thinking about like, what the guy I had a crush on was doing. It wasn't thinking about my homework that was due the next day or like whatever normal people were thinking about. It was like an obsession, like a real obsession. And that was till I, stopped drinking. You know, I normally like really, I don't share this like a ton because I feel like it's like uncomfortable, but like, you know, there's like there's like a reputation, I feel like, or an idea that like women alcoholics like get into a lot of like precarious situations, like sexually or whatever. And like, oh, did you meet a lot of guys at the bar? And I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like I went to the bar and the only thing I was thinking about was the next drink and the next bag of Coke. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't like, I didn't care about the socialization aspect. I didn't care about like anything else except for like the next bag and the next like drink, you know? And so like, that's the way I'm like wired. But I remember, so I think I was listening to y'all's podcast and y'all were talking about pill mills. And pill mills so I'm 34. When I was in high school, pill mills were like a really big thing. We would go down. I never went down to Houston, but my friends would go down to Houston. They would go to the doctors. You would pay them like whatever, like $100 for an appointment. And they would write you a big old script and then you just go to the next one. And so we had all these pills that were real. They weren't cut like they are today. Wow. And they were easy to get. It was like candy, dude. You could get a sandwich bag size of Xanax, like for like, like $200 or $300. And so I remember like learning about Xanax before I even saw one, but it was like the older kids were doing Xanax and they explained what it was. And they were like, it's kind of like you drink, but you're not hungover and you don't smell and yeah. And like you don't have anxiety. And I was like, you don't have anxiety. Like I already had this, like, I already had this like black hole in me. Like I always felt different. I always felt alone. I told someone the other day that I feel like I was like born sad. Like I was freaking born sad. Relate. And so like I learned about this drug and like automatically I'm like fixated on this idea of getting Xanax. And I remember the first time I got one because it was like the clouds parted. I was my friend had this old like Bronco and we wanted to go to the mall, which was for the Austin folks, Barton Creek Mall. And so we went to Barton Creek Mall and he gave me a little I think we called them school buses or whatever.
Yellow school bus, right?
But it was the GGs. So
the white ones.
It was the white ones. It was the GGs.
Yeah.
So
bricks, ladders.
Yeah.
I don't remember what we called them for some reason.
They're 4 pieces, right?
But you always knew the GG was from like one, I shouldn't glorify drugs, but it was like from one manufacturer and it just like hit different.
Yeah.
And so I had a GG. And I went to the mall and I like stole some earrings, ran into a kid that I knew from middle school and then like left. And it was like a non-issue until I get home and the kid that I ran into in at the mall sends me an AIM message and it's like, good to see you at the mall. And I'm like, what? I realized I didn't remember that I had seen him, and so it's like, wow. And then I went like that for a long time and I'll tell you, I'll cut to the chase, but I like 2 years later, so I was like 16 or 17. I remember some friends like essentially sat me down, but like in a really like messy way because we were young. And they were like, we think you have a problem with Xanax. And so I was like, maybe they're right. Like, and it never occurred to me that I had an addiction problem. It never occurred to me any of these things, but I was like, I'm going to try to get off. Like, I'm going to stop taking them. And like, you have to understand, like, no one's like sat down and like talk to me about addiction. Like, I don't really know what it is. I like know maybe that guy that stands on the corner like has a problem. And I definitely don't know that it runs in my family, by the way, like real, like thick. Like my dad just passed away last year, but he passed away with 13 and a half years sober. My mom has 7 years sober currently and continuously. And so like, no one gave me this message, which like, it's not their fault, but I do think that's an important conversation if it runs in your family. And so I'm trying to have this first day, at this high school, I'm in school and I'm trying to stop taking these Xanax. And so I do, and I get really sick. So I end up on the couch and I went to a small like almost like Montessori type school. And so I could go into my teacher's office and lay on the couch and I'm like hot and I'm like cold and I'm sweating and I'm like shaking and I feel like I'm like having this level of anxiety, like I'm like not in my body. And I think like I knew that I was having withdrawal, but I was so young that it's like, I don't really know what I knew. I just know that the next time I did it, I like something happened. I must have told my parents, or they must have found out. They had like walked in on me like snorting Xanax and stuff. So it's like, not like it was like a huge secret. But the next time I ended up in the hospital. So like I started going to detox centers when I was 16. I think it was 16. I went to detox for the first time when I was 16 and treatment for the first time when I was 17. And I didn't stay sober. I did adolescent programs, which is essentially like, like it's like sad. It's like adolescent summer camp for kids that use. It's like super weird. And like, I see those kids now. I like sometimes I'm involved in the recovery community. So sometimes I'll, have some involvement with that. And I see them now and I'm like, they look like kids. That was me. And so like, whatever, like I start growing up, my dad gets sober. I take him to his first meeting. Actually, he never goes to treatment. He calls me. He says he wants to end his own life. And my mom sends me over there and I take him to his first meeting and he stays sober. He never goes to treatment. He never goes to detox. Wow. He hears a message at the 12-step group and he stays sober. He like, there's there's this 12-step group in like North Central Austin. It's kind of like a country club. Like,
Yeah, we know.
yeah, it's like kind of like a country club. And I guess I told him that. I was like, there's like this club, you know, it's like a country club. And he was like, that sounds cool. And he hung out there, you know, every day from like 8:30 a.m. to like whatever 9 when the meeting ends. And he was continuously sober. And then my mom ended up getting sober when I was like 25 or 26. And you have to keep in mind, I never stayed sober through any of this. And so what started as my parents being in Al-Anon, which is a 12-step recovery program. That's probably an anonymity problem, but it's fine. What started as my parents being in Al-Anon ended up, you know, them being in like 12-step recovery communities for themselves, like sobriety programs. And I was the last one standing, you know, and it became like abundantly clear, you know, when my car gets stuck in a pond, you know, at 11:30 p.m. at night, like what the issue is. Right. But I also like, you know, again, I held this job, which like I say that when I tell my story, because like that was like how I thought, right? I'm like, well, yeah, I know that I, you know, probably have like no shit 15 to 20 drinks a night. And I know I like can, you know, put back a few grams of cocaine by myself at night in my bedroom, like by myself. And I know that I have to take a Xanax or else I'm going to get sick or like, you know, get real shaky. But like I have a job, you know what I mean? And it was like a cool job, you know? And so that was like my thing. And then like, of course, like it progresses and like I stop being able to show up for work and I get a doctor's note, you know, cause I always have a plan. So I get this doctor's note and I'm like, this is why I can't show up to work. I have a mental health problem, because that's what I thought it was. You know, I was like, I am mentally.
I was the same way. I used to always compare myself. Like I looked at homeless people and I'm like, well, that's not me. Like they obviously have a bigger problem than what I do. And I would always compare it like I'm a functioning addict.
Yeah.
That's what I was now that I look back. But I used to always look at like I have a house, I have a car, I have a job. Now, do I perform my job well? Probably not. I don't show up on time ever. I'm missing work all the time, but I have a job. And I would always compare myself to other people or people that I was using with. And those were the easiest ones to compare with because they never worked. They didn't have jobs. They didn't pay rent or anything. And I was like, well, I'm not as bad as they are. So I'm not as bad as what y'all think that I am. Right. And I like that you said something about like no one ever taught you, because that's something that I struggled with on teaching my 8-year-old everything about drugs. Yeah. Like if you ask her anything, she'll give you a drug school on it. She'll tell you what it does. Yeah. Like she'll tell you like this, you'll see shadow people doing that, Dad, or you'll do this or you'll do that.
Have you told her about the paint yet?
No, but that's next. I'll tell her about that. You reminded me about that. But that's something that I think is so important, because we're in rooms with people that will openly say they started using drugs at 9 years old or they had their first drink at 5 years old. And I think that's something like me and her mom kind of went back and forth. She was upset that I told her about all this. And I said, look, I would rather her know now, knowing my situation, rather than down the road us finding out that she's doing something and man, we should have warned her and we should have told her about it ahead of time. So I tell her all the time, look, here soon, one of your friends is going to ask you to smoke weed. And she's like, really, Dad? Yeah, I promise you. One of them's going to say, hey, take this pill. You're going to feel better. Even at 8 or 9 or 10 years old. And we don't do that. That's not, you remember what it did to Dad. So I think that's so important that people, they need to let their children know, like, and let your kids know that, look, this is something that runs in our family, and let's go ahead and you know, warn and teach about it now. Because I don't think the schools teach about that anymore, like DARE and all that.
Well,
I don't think that
this is more like a,
they don't do that anymore. I love that shirt.
But like, and there's a reason why, like, I think these things didn't work is because you're basically just trying to spit, you know, textbook at somebody. And I don't think that's what what works. Like, it's about honest, open, safe space, you know, holding safe spaces so you can feel comfortable that when that thing does happen, or yes, Mom or Dad, I did drink last night, or oh, Mom, I am drunk right now, and can you come pick me up, instead of, oh, I'm drunk, I can't call them. Because like I didn't grow up around drugs and alcohol. Like, my mom was a recovered alcoholic. got sober in 89. My biological father was a heroin addict who was out of my life. My mom met my dad in AA, as I've said before. They got married in AA.
Yeah.
Dude,
They got
that's
married
awesome.
outside of a
dream, baby.
Not a Galana club, Al-Anon club.
I love that.
You know, like, but when they caught me using, it was punishment. It was, oh, you're grounded. You're grounded. Like what? There was really no like there was no conversation.
Yeah.
And every time I did use, I felt like y'all don't understand. Like I'm just having fun. And then when I did get into like deeper waters, it was like, fuck, I feel bad now because I'm letting them down. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to hurt them. And then until it got to the point where I don't care, and now I'm nodding out in your kitchen, and like, so I think just having open discussion and just having that space to where you can tell me anything, and it's, you know, there's no judgment around
A safe space.
Well, there's a level of embarrassment too that I would think that comes along with that you don't want to talk to your kid about. I just try to put myself in that position, right?
Shame.
Where it's like, where you feel the shame, and it's like, I don't want to share with them what I did. I want to protect them from. That's a very natural. I have 2 kids. You want to protect them from
everything,
fucking everything, right? But the reality is that you can't,
right?
And the best protection that you can give your child, I think, is letting them know what the fuck is out there. Like, I mean, look, this is real. It exists. It's not the fucking boogeyman underneath your bed. Like, this is some real shit that you're gonna have to come across. And I think that, I mean, the ages are getting so much younger and younger and younger, man. It's wild. So I don't know your parents' situation, but just me putting them in, putting myself in their shoes, I could almost feel like they might have been trying to protect you or create some sort of bubble around you.
They
for that.
for sure were, but I also don't think they knew yet.
Right.
I don't think they knew that they had it too, because we grew up they had families where they didn't talk about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So what happened whenever you started? You said that it wasn't a problem until it started being a problem with your jobs. You started like, I kind of cut you off.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it just the way, because, okay, like this is a chronic and progressive disease. So like, I love that, like we had the conversation about like sharing with your kids, right? Because if there was another chronic or progressive disease in your family, you would share it, you
Right.
know?
100%.
Yeah. And so that's so important. But like, so my disease progressed and I like no longer was showing up to work, and this was just like my cherished job, you know? And, I guess that's like when the wheels came off. I'm trying to think. I like had some periods of like, I say like sobriety loosely because I was like, I like found a way of like getting medication from my doctor that was like prescribed, and that felt like
You felt better.
than like what I was doing before. And so like I had these periods of like wavy, non-committal type recovery. And then, I can just all I can tell you is that the wheels came off. I asked my mom for help. She dropped everything. I went to a detox program, didn't do too well in that detox program, ended up in the back of a police car and then in a psychiatric unit. Because I wanted to end my life. That's the way that's what this disease does to us. That's one of the final progressions, right? Or it can be one of the final progressions. It just depends. I was lucky that I didn't, act on it, and ended up in a treatment program. And like, I think at that moment I was like so ready because I had been exposed to like recovery communities since I was at least 16 or 17, and had never really like sat all the way down, and I was just so ready. Like the job was gone. All my friends were gone. I don't even know if I really like ran with anyone at that time. I mean, I had like people that I drank with, but it just like there was nothing like there anymore, and I was just so desperate and I was so tired. The way my bottom looked is Like it was like drinking, and then like crawling on the floor crying. Like that's the way my dad like described it. It was just like this, like almost like manic, like couldn't sit still, but like ultra depressed, like total like weirdo vibes. Like, you know, it wasn't like I ended up in prison, you know, or jail or, you know, went bankrupt, or I wasn't married. So there wasn't like a divorce or any like falling out of kids. I was just, so I became hopeless. That's what it was. Like I became so utterly hopeless that I realized that something had to change, or else like I was not going to make it that much longer. And I was so lucky because I was going to a meeting at that point. And that meeting is good. That's how I met Mike Stu. But like this girl like came in one day. It was like she floated in. And she was around my age, and she was like well dressed, and she was pretty, which like I was like really just attracted to her and like that. And she shared like no one I had ever like heard before. It was almost like she was ethereal, like she was like a spiritual being, and she like had a solution to my problem. And it was like something about what she said like took me. And like, I was like willing, like, I was like, I will follow her lead. And like, I had this experience where like the first time I got together with her, like I thought that I might scare her. Like my experience might scare her, or some of the things I said might scare her. And like, I always say that she didn't even blink. Like I told her about myself and like what my drinking and using was like, and she didn't even bat an eye, you know, because she had that experience, and she had been in extended recovery or long-term recovery for 5 to 6 years. And so that woman showed me the way, you know? And I did end up doing treatment. I did it for like a pretty long time. Like I'm like the type that was in sober living for like 14 months. You know, I was in IOP for like 9 months. I got sober right before the pandemic started. And so, like I kind of like needed like this like safety container, and like, and I was just ready, you know? And so now I get to do cool stuff like this. Like my life has completely changed. I work at that treatment center now, which is like
you went to,
awesome. Which is like a full circle moment. Yeah. I got engaged in March to my fiance. He's amazing.
Well, and I'll just make a comment about him. Quite possibly the coolest human being on the planet,
and the most handsome. I know.
Well, you know. I'll let you say that. But
I couldn't have written.
You know he is.
But you're right. He's beautiful. I'm not gonna lie to you. He's gorgeous.
I couldn't have written. You know.
He is. Awesome guy.
It's crazy, and I've also like experienced a lot of like really tough things in sobriety. I like, you know, opened a business, had a falling out with my business partners. I lost my dad unexpectedly. I just had like a lot of life stuff happen. I think I got this memo that like when you get, or I like got this message that when you get sober, like we're happy, joyous, and free. Right. And I didn't like hear the other part that's like, I signed up. Well, I don't know if I knew that I signed up, but like, I'm going to have a human experience when I'm sober, which like I didn't have. I mean, my experience in addiction was like so human, but it was also like so non-human, because it was just like this distorted reality of like pouring things on top of any emotion. And so to deal with anything like real now is crazy. I didn't have the skills, and y'all have had, y'all have had this experience too. I know.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's insane. But it's a great, I always say it's like a checkbox. It's like, I keep an imaginary chalkboard where I can chalk something off or check something off. When I go through one of those things now sober, that during my addiction, I would have used behind it to be able to get through it.
Yeah.
And now to be able to go through it sober and not have to use to get through it, it's like, no matter what the situation is, it can be a win in some way, you know, where I didn't have to get high to get through that. I can actually go through a breakup or go through this or go through that. And it sucks. It's going to hurt.
Yeah.
But I don't have to use because of it.
Yeah.
I think, I try to embrace the feelings today, good, bad, indifferent. Like I get to feel today.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I finally realized, I don't know what clicked in my head of just like I remember like a breakup or something, like, or something would happen. I'll show them. I'm gonna go shoot heroin. I'll show them. You're gonna be so mad when I overdose and relapse.
You'll be sorry.
You're gonna be disappointed.
Yeah.
And then
they might show up for the overdose. You know.
You know who? Every time though, it was me. Oh wow. I'm hurting me. I'm not hurting them.
Yeah.
I've already been doing this. They
Probably
already know.
hurting them too.
Well, yeah, but after a while, it's like,
Bye.
we already know, dude.
Yeah.
This is what you do.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like, once I realized like the drugs never fixed anything and the problems that I was trying to escape and run from were still there.
Still there at the end of it.
And they got compoundedly worse. Like now I'm homeless. Now I'm kicked out of my 14th sober living. Like, I love to feel today, you know, like it's okay.
Yeah. I try to do prayers. Like, so I try to be like, if I'm like really feeling something uncomfortable, and it takes me sometimes a while to get here, but it's like, thank you for allowing me to feel this today. It just helps, like hugging it, you know?
Yeah. So I've yet to experience anything like a major loss or like a real, like drastic life of, I mean, my 19 months of recovery have been, I'm not gonna say it's been easy. I mean, there's been some difficult things, but like nothing like too monumental. I guess thankfully, I don't know. But what were the things that you utilized, or what got you through those things in particular?
Yeah, it's crazy because after my dad died, so I had just left my job, and so I was actually looking for a new job, and my dad passed away, and I was like, I'm taking a break. And so I had I feel like in a way my life got really small. It was like I was grieving, so I stayed at home a lot and I like gardened. But like what I tell people is that I like stuck to the commitments I already had. So I still went to my home group. I went to my home group like 2 days after my dad died, and that always like thinking back like gives me kind of like the chills, because it was like I went up and I like drove myself there, like it was like time to take responsibility for my recovery, and I listened to a fifth step, like you know, like a week later, which like I think I was just like so taught to do these things that, and I like had like some time, like some experience knowing that it's like almost like a habit at this point. It's not something that I consciously do. It's just like part of my lifestyle. And so that stuff was like built in, and I did those things, you know, and I also like probably did some things that weren't great. You know, I did like isolate a little bit. I think me and my sister went on like these like online shopping things, like, but it was like so much better, you know. And my friend I was like telling on myself to my friend, I'm like, I've been shopping a lot, and he's like, well, our friend over there, you know, started shooting dope again because they went through a breakup, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then all of a sudden it put it in perspective, and I'm like, but it's the same things I've done the whole time. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I went to the freaking meeting and I answered the phone and I meditated and prayed and tried to live in principle. I tried to be of service to my family. You know, I didn't do it perfect. I yelled at them like once and was like, or a few times, and was like mortified, you know, because that was such old behavior for me. But like, I really like stepped into like, how can I serve the other people that are grieving? And it was natural, which is so crazy, you know?
But you're awesome at it. I told you before this podcast started, whenever I was telling some females that I know in recovery,
some women
that some women that I know that you were coming on, like you're one of the most loved people in our community. What guy or girl, you're all the women love you. When Allie Fleming's name is mentioned, it's like, oh my God, she's such an, I mean, you won't hear any bad things about you. You know,
depends who you ask. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I shared this, I think, in a meeting you were in one time, but at the beginning, like my first few amends were to these women that I was like mean to in AA.
Yeah, I remember you said.
And like when I amend something, I like make a commitment to like not engage in that behavior anymore. And so like one of the commitments I made is not only to be mean, or like not to be mean to those women anymore, but like to be kind to the women in AA. And the truth is that's so much more like in alignment with my spirit anyway. Like any of that like nastiness or meanness, like was just like fear, you know? And so it's like, I get to do those things today, and it's so fulfilling, you know? Yeah. Cause I do have a lot of, it's been abundantly clear to me, you know, how much I am supported. Like it continues to reveal itself in a way, you know?
Yeah. You still sponsor girls?
Yeah. I always will. I think,
always.
I hope. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I have a question about, so I've always heard, and again, ignorance on my behalf.
Moron.
Moron. Yeah. Yeah. You got it. So withdrawal symptoms, I've heard that they are the worst on benzos and alcohol. And you had them both. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, because those are the two, correct me if I'm wrong, those are the two withdrawal symptoms that will kill you.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, they have that potential to, you have to sort of be weaned off of those two things. So what was your detox like?
Well, okay. It was super weird. I thought about that the other day because I had I knew of somebody that was withdrawing from Kratom, you know, and like I caught myself being like, oh, they're withdrawing from Kratom. Like, it's not that bad, you know? And then I realized that I come from a place where like I was detoxing and have detoxed from two of the most gnarly and deadly at once. And I'll tell you this, I was in detox. I don't remember like pretty much anything. I don't know how many days I was there. I didn't know what day I checked in until I got my paperwork like 2 years ago. So I called and asked for my paperwork. So my sobriety date is like about 3 weeks after I checked into a facility. And that's because that's when my detox ended.
Okay.
So, and that's not because I think that's what people should do, but my detox was long. I don't remember a lot of it because I was on a high amount of drugs because they had to keep me safe and they had to do it. My detox was longer than most. I mean, 3 weeks is like pretty long. Now at the end of that, I was like going to groups. I was like running around, you know, I just had like a little bit of benzodiazepine in the morning and at night, but it was brutal. I mean, like the things that happen in detox, like happened, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Whatever you can think about.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Fucking happened.
Yeah.
I thought methadone withdrawal was bad. My God.
I'm sure it is, dude. I'm sure they're all terrible.
You're right,
you know, they all suck.
Yeah.
Meth is just real depressing.
Yeah.
Like if that's what would always keep me getting high again, is I could get like 5 or 6 days clean on my own. But once that depression would kick in, it was fucking unbearable.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I used to always say, and I don't condone this. We may have to put a disclaimer
Censor.
on here, but like I
say
never
that a
understood.
lot.
I never understood suicide,
Yeah.
and I still don't. But if people feel the way that I felt during that, I could almost see where someone would say, if they feel that way every day, just fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, and that would keep me getting high again. And that was what saved me this last time, is when y'all put me in rehab. If I wouldn't have went to rehab that day, I would have used again. Cause I was to the point to where it was, I mean, I cried like 13 times by lunch that day.
Yeah.
dude.
That
And
was,
Bro, that was the hardest day for me to watch. Maybe any human being was that day.
yeah. I love
Yeah.
you.
Love you too. dude. Yeah, man.
Man, when I started rehab that next day, we watched
when I started rehab.
we watched Transformers, and I fucking cried when Bumblebee got beat up.
Yeah.
Oh
dude.
my.
And I know Bumblebee's not gonna die.
Yeah, dude. Stop being mean.
Horrible, bro.
Yeah, dude.
But
yeah, man.
Yeah, that detox. I'll tell anybody that if you can get in rehab and go, that detox is so important. Just because, so you can get through those stages where outside in the real world you'll probably use during those stages,
Yeah.
just to not feel that way, you know.
Yeah.
And then if you can get through that, like anytime you want to go back and use again, just remember, I've got to go through all that shit again, that withdrawal and all that bullshit. Why even start that over again?
Yeah. That's the insanity, you know?
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
that was like the big difference maker for me this time, other than overdosing back to back, is that every time, like I used opiates for 13 years, damn near every day. And I never truly felt a withdrawal. You know, like I would either miss a day and then use immediately the next morning, or I would, take a little piece of Suboxone, a little 2 milligram strip, just enough to kill the
Just enough.
enough to kill the ills, but not enough to block too much. Like when I am ready to use.
Yeah.
Or I'd go directly into treatment, and then I'm getting medically detoxed there. I got to truly experience a 5-day withdrawal of fentanyl and meth and heroin and in a shitty motel. And I'm not saying that's the standard. I'm just saying like that's what you should do. If you can stop, coming out of rehab, but like, wow.
Yeah.
And I've never felt anything like that in my life. And like just the willingness that I had to get through that, it made me never want to use again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So as far as you in recovery now, I know you said you have all these amazing things going on with you're sponsoring people. You're getting married.
Amazing
Yeah.
fiance.
Amazing
Nice abs.
fiance.
Nice ass.
Yeah. He looks amazing shirtless. Apparently that's what I've heard like a couple times already. But what is that? What does that look like for you now outside of those things? What motivates you to stay on the road of recovery?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, not to be cheesy, but I think this is like really where like the one day at a time comes in, like every day, like I wake up, or the days that I've woken up before today and today included, I'm like, I don't want to use today. Things have been too good. You know what I mean? And so then I just do the things that have worked for me. I think that I like had an experience with my drinking and using where it's like abundantly clear to me that like, I can't drink and use, like I can't like control and enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Right.
100%.
And so like, if I can't control and enjoy it, then like, and I don't have the choice when I use anymore, like it's progressed, then I just know that it's going to get really dark really fast. And I have had like experiences like that I like didn't like include in my story today, but like where I've had like periods of abstinence where I've like tried again, you know what I mean? And it's like the wheels come off so fast. Now I'm like one of those people that can like use for a few days and then it's like I'm institutionalized.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't even want to be,
Right.
And so it's like, well, what kind of life is that? You
Yeah.
know? So I just try to do the things that like take care of me, so I don't have to live that way anymore. I don't want to have a tragic ending,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So alcohol you're the first alcoholic that we've had on. Yeah. So like, and I'm the normie, right? And I don't do any drugs at all, but I do drink on occasion. And through doing this, I've like, I see alcohol everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's all over the place. You're not doing anything wrong if you do it. You're the only person you're doing anything wrong to is you. Right. So, what is your life like just being out there with this thing that's accepted for you to do at any point? Like, do you have to change where you're hanging out, how you're hanging out? Like,
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
look, I'm kind of smart-ish a little bit.
He's getting better every week.
Yes.
He actually is really great.
No, I love it.
Learning Spanish, fractions.
Yeah. Quince.
Yeah.
Ocho.
Quinceañera.
Yeah, dude. It's
Mouth withdrawals and everything.
Yeah, look at you. I love it. No, it's really cool. So like, I don't have to go to like Runberg, or like
Yeah.
That's my spot.
Yeah, right. I don't have to go down to Runberg or like the old dude's house where I like knock 3 times and then like slip cash under the door. I just go to the corner store, right?
You go right there.
And and so like that's like something I love about at least like the way like the way I've gotten sober and like the modalities or the approaches I've used, like I'm a 12-step person. And like, so like the way I've been taught is like, if I like essentially do certain things that like the problem is removed. So I don't have the experience of like having to white knuckle. Like I don't go into the grocery store and I'm like, ooh, the wine aisle, you know, like sometimes I even walk through it if that's the fastest way to get to like the goldfish or whatever I'm needing to buy that day, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like the miracle about this thing. But like there had to be a lot of work. And like, you know, I don't think that like one approach is like the only approach. Like I'm pretty open-minded in terms of recovery. Like I think there's a lot of different, like essentially roads to Rome or whatever. But I do think the one thing that like you have to do is you have to be committed to growth. Like the 12-step like says like the point is to grow along spiritual lines, but like no matter what program you look at, like you have to be committed to personal growth. And so like I've been committed to personal growth. And as a result, that wine's not staring at me when I go into the HEB or whatever, you know?
Okay.
It's great.
And as far as, do you have friends that are normies?
Yeah. Like I like run with some of my old friends from high school sometimes. And like I have family members that still drink. Most of my friends, like it's just not as fun to like go out with my friends that like drink a ton anymore. So those like friendships like change kind of naturally. Like, I think they were like really sick of having to go out of their way to like go to workout classes for us to hang out. And I was like sick of them like censoring their conversations because they were scared they couldn't mention alcohol. And I just think I learned with like a lot of my friends that I used to drink with that we just don't have a lot in common anymore. But like, yeah, I mean, occasionally like I'll go out to like dinners or like concerts where like people are like boozing and like I just like get like clear, you know, typically before I go in, like, hey, I'm like, that alcohol is like not for me, you know? It's great that they can drink, but like that's not for me.
Right.
Know? And that's just it.
Yeah. So I brought this up before, but it was, you know, we've gone on like retreats to get to know each other as a team a little bit. And we go to Dave and Buster's and I make the conscious decision not to drink around them. And I had to ask him on the podcast, like, does it feel weird? Like that I'm like, I'll have a soda. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want
Shirley Temple.
Yeah, I didn't want me to
Let me
be
get a virgin mudslide.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
yeah. No, but you guys are in a little bit of a different situation. Like I
That's
think
GHB.
Yeah.
well, yeah. If you're gonna
Break out a paint can in front of you.
yeah,
Well, see, like me, when I go to music events, like I'm generally usually the only sober person there, unless Critchy's there with me.
yeah.
And it's blunts being passed in front of me.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you know, and it's like, it doesn't phase me because I've accepted the fact that I can't use today, and I'm okay with that. You know, like I've truly surrendered that. You know, man, what if, you know, if I could just smoke a blunt, I would be okay. And, you know, if I could just, but it never works like that because eventually I'm going to want to get higher.
Yeah.
That weed is going to expire because I'm going to want to get higher.
Yeah.
And like, plus I take so much pride in my sobriety that if I am no longer sober, I'm not just going to smoke weed because why would I stop there? You know, like,
yeah, if I end it, I'm going all the way.
like, I worked hard for this 19 months
For sure.
and I'm not going to give it up over a blunt or a sip. You know, like,
It's funny because when we go golfing, they drink and smoke blunts in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it doesn't bother me. I said, now if y'all smoke meth, that would be a little different.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what normal people just smoke meth in front of you? And I'm like, well, it's true. That's pretty fair.
You're like, you don't know where I've been.
Yeah.
You know?
And
You know what's crazy is I used to, like, I was somewhere not long ago and I seen some people doing a key bump. And I was like,
Nice.
cool, good on you. And but I was thinking, I was like I used to pull my meth pipe out and smoke it in front of anybody. I didn't give a fuck.
What?
Like I didn't care.
Like where?
Like if we went to
Movie
lunch
theater.
together, if you went to
Subway.
lunch with me at work, if you're riding with me, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna pull my pipe out and smoke it in front of you.
Did you ever see
that's
him?
wild.
I never
No,
did. But so the thing, so our relationship was, I knew what he was doing, and I loved him, but I loved him like this, right?
Yeah.
Like from an arm's distance. So like when we were at work, it was, you're my buddy and we're tight and we're going to do the dick and shit jokes. that we do, and we're gonna get crazy, but
Just got a little crazy.
but
A little crazy. Yeah, so
That's wild.
it's
Like, I would be so paranoid. Not
I
you,
wasn't.
huh?
I didn't care. But towards the
Mike,
end,
Mike in a company retreat. Just
towards the end,
crazy.
I was always using by myself
Stu Boy.
anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like
That's Stu Boy.
when I first started using, it was a social thing. Like people would come to my house and I'd smoke you out, and we would just all get high. But then eventually it got to where, and what's crazy is I'm very outgoing.
right.
But it got to where I didn't want to be around people anymore. I just wanted to smoke by myself and chill. So that's where I would start going to lunch by myself.
Right.
I would drive from here
and you're not eating
all the way to Pflugerville. Look, we get an hour and a half lunch. I would drive all the way from work to Pflugerville, which is 30 minutes. So I could go smoke my meth bong for 30 minutes and then haul ass back to work and not make it there on time and then get yelled at. This was the insanity. I would do this every single day rather than just bringing a bong with me. I mean, I would have saved time, you know?
See, meth is so foreign to me that it's like, I mean, it's like crazy to me that you're like a meth bong, and then you're like, I had people smoked them out, and I'm like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, that's
He's smoking weed.
Yeah.
But it was like the insanity now. Like, there's no way I couldn't fathom doing that now. Like, I don't even show up to work late now. Like, not too late.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have to sneak in the back meeting, and because I would be 30 minutes late or 20 minutes late. I would go home with a headset so I could come back the next morning knowing I'm going to be 30 minutes late, but I'll walk in with my headset on and say I was already here. I've just been in the shitter. I was already here. I've been on a call. I've been here. What are y'all talking about?
And his headset's dead. No,
Yeah.
they're like,
Now I got to charge it for 2 hours.
yeah. Now he's like, guess I got to take a break for the next couple hours. Like,
I would have 5 flat tires a week.
Yeah.
I would pull my car in the garage and change my tire, take a picture of it, and say, I got another flat. I'll be 2 hours late, and then put my tire back on and say, well, I got 2 more hours here.
dude,
This was
it was
insanity.
wild. Like some of the story, like
My garage, I parked my car in the garage and my electricity went out, so the garage won't open. I used every story that you can do.
It went further than that. Like the garage door in his apartment complex would open. The power went out.
the
right?
gate for the
No, but then he was like, no, the gate. Nobody can get out. Nobody's getting out. I got to stay home today, guys. Like, I mean, the funniest shit, it's not funny, but it's funny, if that makes sense. So
It's funny now.
it's funny now, but like, so he was smoking in the parking lot one time, and I'm walking up with a manager, and we went to lunch, and a cloud of smoke comes out of his fucking car, and it ain't weed. But we know. And he gets out of his car immediately. Is like, hey, yeah, my fucking radiator must have busted open.
I popped my
and
hood.
he popped his hood and was looking underneath it for something that was wrong. He was like, man,
No, I
yeah.
swear to God.
Yeah, it smells like fucking feet and burnt rubber, right? Like I don't know, like it's just like, dude, the level of
That's good.
dude, this dude was the king at it. But
Yeah, that's good.
it was. I mean, like, it made me think. Where have I been going wrong with my fucking excuses to not show up to work? Oh, my kid's sick. Like,
Our managers
outta
would
here.
have,
This guy
they
was
would
the
make
best.
bets in the morning that one, I was going to call in late, and 2, what excuse I was going to use today,
How did you keep your job?
because I'm pretty good at it.
No.
I've been fired
Yes.
4 times.
Yeah.
They just bring me back. We've heard they bring me back.
yeah,
And because they really love me. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
They knew. So my mentor is one of our big supervisors, Hosea, and he used to always say, he's the one that would always hire me back, and he would always say that he knew that if I could overcome it, the person that I was inside. And he said, and I knew that Stu Boy out there on his own was not a good place for him. If I can keep him closer to me, then maybe there's a chance.
Yeah.
So shout out Jose. I love
yeah.
it.
We started doing there when I was coming around. It was like, we're gonna invite you and your daughter over to fucking gatherings and shit. Because if he's there with us, we know he's not doing what he's doing, like doing what he wants to go do, right? Like maybe he's surrounded by family. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that really understood who he was as a guy, and, you know, me included, and separating what he was doing from who he is was always very easy. So I think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you spend like any time with you, Mike, it's pretty obvious, like your heart, like we used to do this. We used to get together on Sunday evenings when Mike was newly sober, and we would do kind of something similar that we're doing tonight, where we would have dinner and we would like talk about a book, and Mike, like, we stopped, like the girl that was like cooking really like kind of stopped, I think is what happened. And so Mike started like coming and bringing like these big elaborate meals, kind of like he did tonight, every week, so we could get together. And then we were talking about this before we started filming, but we went to this fundraiser. It's an adolescent school, for a high school for kids experiencing substance use, and they had a silent auction. And I got there, and Mike Stu had bid on like every single thing, you know, and it was just because he wanted to support like this program. But like me and our friend Blake, you know, we see it because it's easy. You have a big heart.
That. Well, this like, there's been so many people that's helped me, you know, and there's been so many people, like, if I did this on my own, there's no way I could do it. Yeah. And there's been so many people that's helped me, and that's what the program is giving back. Yeah. Right. Paying it forward. Yeah. And that's one reason we started this podcast, is to pay it forward, you know, to spread the word and let people know that there's a way that you can beat this. And it's so much better on the other side. Like, my life today is insane compared to, like, and I say insane in the greatest amount of way compared to what it was, the insanity that it was. So
I have a question about one of these elaborate meals that you were bringing over. Did it have melted gummies and carrot sticks?
What?
Yeah. But yeah, so you missed this episode. But Mike, this story needs to be told twice. So go ahead and explain this.
They were piss testing me at work, right? After I've been fired a few times, and I'm like, I'm not on drugs, I swear.
This all makes sense in a minute,
we're gonna
I
start
promise.
drug testing me. I was like, fine, no problem. So I start carrying pee on me. Well, one day I forgot to carry.
Was it real pee or the fake pee?
No, it was
the gorilla pee. You know what I'm talking about?
It was a fake pee.
Oh, dude, I thought you had real people's piss in your belt.
I normally did.
That ruins the story for me.
No, I normally did. Sometimes I did. Sometimes it depends if someone would pee for me. I didn't know many sober people to pee for me.
That's true.
So they come and tap me on the shoulder at work, and they're like, "Hey, you need to come. We're going to test you." And I wasn't on the phone, but I pretended like I was, because I'm like, "Shit, I need pee quick." So I went to one of my buddies, and I'm like, "Hey, I need you to pee for me right now." He's like, "Okay." So I give him I empty out my gummy bears, like vitamin gummies, and I give him this bottle to go pee for me. And he goes and pees for me, and he gives it to me, and I go and pass the test. No big deal.
No big deal.
So the next day at work, one of my buddies calls me on my extension. He says, "Hey, man, you still staying clean?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You still sober?" I was like, "Fuck yeah." He said, "Well, just so you know, if you're heating up anything in the microwave," which when he peed in this bottle, I had to go heat it up in the microwave for 10 seconds to keep it hot. Right before, so it didn't cool down by the time we got there. If you're heating up piss in the microwave, they got you on camera. And I'm like, fuck. I was like, he's like, "Yeah, so figure out how to deal with that." I'm like, so I'm thinking, like, how am I gonna get, like, when they pull me in, I'm fucked. Yeah. Right? So what I did was I went and I brought my gummies in this other bottle that I had. So I went and I heated them up in the microwave to melt them. And then I got carrot sticks, and I was eating my gummies that way for like 2 days, right? So when they pulled me in, it's like, "Hey, we've got you on camera. heating up piss. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we do. And I was like, no, I'm heating up gummies. I heat up gummies every day. That's what I do. I said, have you ever ate gummy vitamins? They're horrible. I heat them up and I eat them with carrot sticks to make them taste better. So they're like, there's no fucking way. I'm like, go look at the camera. So they're watching the camera and they're seeing me heat these gummies up. Instead of just saying, it was me, you got me. I heated up gummies and they're
Any lengths.
horrible.
So-
So it only lasted about a week. They got me like a week later.
I mean,
Yeah. So
that's iconic.
No, it is.
It's
episode 3.
That's the
I
most
was like introducing these goofy Tres. Yeah. Episode. So I started introducing like fake sponsors, you know, and the first episode 2 dose was Butthole Meth was our sponsor because Mike told us that he was putting meth in his asshole.
which, yeah.
And
normal.
That was normal. So then episode Tress, I was like, well, now we have a new sponsor, guys. It's fucking carrot sticks and melted gummies. Are they good for you? Absolutely. Do they taste good? Absolutely fucking not.
Not at all.
Yeah. So the lengths that this guy would go to was crazy. But I just wanted to know if he ever gave you guys melted gummies and carrot sticks.
We didn't get that for dinner,
Well,
but next time, hopefully we do.
We should start that as a little hors
yeah.
d'oeuvre.
Put that on the
appetizer.
counter in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try it.
Well, I was going to try it now. What is
I
it really
don't
about?
want to try it.
Yeah, that
I'm
is like
good.
the last thing on earth. I would probably rather drink the piss than.
Well, you know what's funny is I was heating the piss up in a microwave that everybody heats their food up in.
That's so
And I
sad.
didn't even think about
You didn't
this.
give
Y'all
a-
mentioned that to me, and I was like, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
I never thought about the sanitary.
I never even thought about other people.
No.
Yeah, he's fucking heating up his salmon.
Yeah.
He's in there eating a peanut butter piss sandwich.
Yeah.
And doesn't know why.
It's okay.
Dude, the
Okay.
smell.
I've eaten worse. Dude, you know what's funny is like people bitch about microwaving fish, right? Like, I don't know if they ever bitched about microwaving fucking urine. They were like, yeah, it's like fucking whatever.
Piss in the microwave anymore.
Yeah.
That'd have been awesome.
Dude, that was,
Whoever's heating up piss in the microwave, please stop.
yeah. Well, there's only one human being in this world that would fucking do
Guilty.
that. Yeah.
Guilty.
I love it.
Yeah. Good times.
Well, you guys want to keep going? Where are we at, Joe? We got one more minute. We're at an hour.
That's
did
time flies
you-
by here.
Did you give us the fucking finger?
No, yeah, you guys were like the front side.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, you're usually doing. Remember this thing that you did? Remember this thing where you did to tell us to fucking stop that one time? Yeah, I do.
He doesn't remain like,
do.
nah, dude.
Yeah, it wasn't
Y'all have
this.
ladies on
It
set
wasn't
today.
like
I'm
this. It was. Well,
That's why we call
He,
him the moron.
he just pretends he doesn't know. what you're
yeah,
talking about.
yeah.
He don't speak English all of a sudden.
He's like now he's like nah, no sabe.
Oh, man.
Well, I guess we can wrap this up. We've been doing this for a little while now, and Miss Sally, this was an absolute
were
pleasure.
awesome.
You were
Ah,
awesome.
This is fun.
This
Yeah,
was so much fun, and having your perspective and tracking your journey, and you being so open about it with our world here.
With
is-
two addicts and a moron.
Two addicts and a moron.
Yeah, I didn't really know your story. I just thought it was alcohol. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wild ride that you had, and I know the ride is still going for you, but couldn't be happier that you found the other side, and you have the coolest guy I've ever met on your arm, and yeah, so just thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys. It's an honor. It really
You're truly an
is.
inspiration to the whole ATX recovery community.
Thank
and we
you.
appreciate you so much. And we're so glad you could be our second guest.
Our first female.
You're still a
first
first. You're
woman,
still a
yes.
first.
I
Yeah.
love
When
it.
we talked about a female, I was like, Allie. Got to be
Most
Allie.
definitely.
Yeah.
I was so happy when you said
And
that.
when I sent you the message, I was like, please say yes. Just
Please
fucking say yes. Say yes.
I'm
And
so
then
glad
when you
we
were
got
like,
to-
yes, I was like, fuck yeah. Yeah, I was so excited.
I love it. Thank you guys so much.
No, we appreciate it. So everybody, please keep going, liking, subscribing, notification bells.
We're almost to 10,000.
We are.
subs.
Yeah.
My hometown, Vidor, Texas. Ben's and Lexus coming down with Texas to a sexist.
What?
What the fuck did you just
I don't
say?
think anyone's repping Veter.
Hey, so
boy.
listen. So our population is 9,789. So we almost have more subscribers than my hometown population.
Well, before
That's
I checked this, I
crazy.
believe we're at 9,740.
no, we're higher than that.
Oh,
Where
God.
are we at,
Here we
Joe?
go.
Do you know? Let me check this.
Bring it up, Joe.
9,780.
Whoa.
Wow.
We made it. We're bigger than
No,
Biden.
we're-
Oh,
there's
almost a bigger
789.
right. Oh,
We're-
okay.
There's
So a few away.
We're a few away
By
from being
tomorrow, we
Ryder,
should be
Texas.
By tonight.
Yeah.
tonight. There we go.
Well, let's go.
Let's
well, from our crazy, fucked up, weird universe here at Two Addicts and a Moron, and thank you, Allie, for making
Thank
it
you
less
so
of
much
that
for
way
coming on.
today. We are over and out.
Deuces.
That was fun.
Yeah.